channel on spiritual tourism. My name is Bobby Ansari, and many of you might know me as Earth Energy Reader from my blog, The Shift Has Hit the Fan. So I'm going to be trying out this new video format to see if it works, if people are interested, if it generates any interest. So bear with me. It might seem a little amateurish in the beginning. I'm still kind of figuring all this stuff out as well. But basically, I really wanted to start this channel to talk about spiritual tourism, spiritual travel, places of power, places of healing around the world, places that I've been to, my own impressions, and also for help people out in terms of how they might want to organize or visit these places on their own. A secondary thing that I'll be talking about on this channel is something which I will call Guru Watch, which is basically outing, discussing, and kind of giving a heads up to people on fake gurus, fake spiritual teachers, fake leaders, fake new age shamans and plastic new age frauds, plastic shamans, that sort of thing. Because I think there are a lot of people who are vulnerable, who are falling prey to a lot of these fake teachers. And this is just my own little way of, kind of giving you some information, some tidbits to look out for, teachings to look out for, people to look out for, to really protect yourself, really, more than anything else. So the problem of gurus gone wild or fake spiritual teachers has been around since the beginning of time, practically. It goes back to the idea of fake prophets within the Abrahamic tradition, namely Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It's nothing new under the sun. It's just the tactics are getting more sophisticated. They're using different lingo. But wherever you have this power imbalance between a spiritual teacher or a guru and followers and students, whenever you have this imbalance, there's always fertile ground for exploitation in that case. So it's just something for you to think about and something to, keep in mind when you read about new teachers or new teachings, or, when there's always a new book or lecture or tour or cruise or workshop to look out for more than anything else. So I think also there's a problem that a lot of people who are spiritual seekers or followers are in some ways, many ways actually, broken. And there are unfortunately more than enough people in this world who are only too happy to take advantage of that vulnerability. So I just want you to be informed more than anything else. So there's another problem, particularly with gurus and teachers of Indian origin in particular, I think. And from what I understand, this is a problem that's also happening in the Native American community with fake elders. People who are appropriating Native American teachings, paraphernalia, and styling themselves and presenting themselves as elders or as spiritual spokespersons for certain tribes. I'm not familiar with all of it, but if this is something that really you'd like to look into, I would strongly suggest you visit the New Age Fraud and Plastic Shamans website. It's run by very insightful, very educated Native Americans, where they discuss these fake teachers, right? So with respect to Indian teachers and gurus, they largely play up on Western ignorance. There's this idea of Western ignorance and Eastern exoticism, which they kind of use to lure in, people who don't know any better. So, we've had many, many gurus and teachers who have done all sorts of atrocious things to their followers. There's sexual assault, there's rape, there's bigamy, there's spiritual abuse, there's emotional abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, you just name it, it's happened. I mean, and the problem has gotten so bad that it's almost become a cultural trope at this point, where there are comedy films that kind of play up on some of these tropes and stereotypes, like, for example, the Mike Myers film, The Love Guru. that came out a couple of years ago. There was also Kumare, which was like a mockumentary, and it just kind of showed how gullible many Western followers are, and how ignorant they are. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean that they're stupid. They're just lacking information. So this is just my little way of kind of giving you some information so that you can kind of discern who the true teacher is and who isn't. So, there's this huge problem, I think, in the West with spirituality in general, right? There's a huge spiritual hunger, and it's very genuine, it's very real. People are looking, people are searching. They don't really know where to start or where to begin. I think part of it is because a lot of people are leaving organized and traditional religion in droves, but they're leaving one thing, but they still have the spiritual hunger, so they don't know where to, satiate that hunger, if you will. So today I'm going to focus on Bikram Choudhury, the father of Bikram Yoga, or hot yoga as we know it. Why am I choosing Bikram? Well, first of all, it was a very well publicized case. But I think he's an easy target to talk about because he's Bengali and I'm Bengali. So I kind of wanted to bring my, my angle on it, if you will. So many Westerners don't really understand the differences among Indians, right? So the first thing I think you need to really understand about India is that it is a vast, vast subcontinent. When you say I am Indian, it's like saying I am European. Well, what kind of European are you? Are you, Spanish? Are you Maltese? Are you Slovakian? Are you Czech? Are you Russian? Are you English? What kind of European are you? And likewise, you can say the same thing about India. If you say I'm Indian, well, what kind of Indian are you? Are you Bengali? Are you Tamil? Are you a Keralite? Are you Punjabi? Are you Gujarati? Are you Marathi? Are you Kashmiri? I mean, you have to remember before the creation of India as we know it today politically in 1947, all of these different regions in India were once upon a time either, little kingdoms, they were princely states, and even micro countries in some cases. So we're talking about huge, huge, diverse differences, not only in culture, language, diet, geography, customs and practices within castes and subcastes, religion. It's the only thing they basically almost have in common is the brown skin, if that. It's just as widely divergent, as say a Spaniard would be from somebody from Lithuania. So you have to keep that in mind. But unfortunately, because again, going back to Western ignorance, they might see a guru come by who's got the brown skin, who's got the right paraphernalia, who's using the right buzzwords, like moksha and, nirvana and samsara and siddhe and chakras, and they just fall hook, line, and sinker because they just don't know any better. So, with that in mind, as an Indian, I have to say that we kind of know each other very well. Indians really can kind of detect who the other fake Indian is, or in my case, a Bengali, right? So to give you an example, like I said, we're going to discuss Bikram Choudhury today. And I can tell you up front, that within the Bengali community, from day one, Bikram was kind of considered to be a charlatan, a fraud, and literally full of hot air. So if you want to know more about Bikram, because it's such a well-documented case at this point, I would really encourage you to visit the Netflix website or watch the Netflix documentary about him. It really documents, his humble beginnings in India to how he showed up in Los Angeles and became the Beverly Hills guru, and how he built up his Bikram hot yoga empire and how he lost it eventually. The rape allegations, the fact that he's wanted for these outstanding rape allegations, and so forth, and how the empire has basically gone bust, which it should have, rightly so. So, from my perspective, I'm actually not that surprised that what had happened to Bikram went down the way it did. And I'm going to tell you why. Uh, you only had to kind of look at some of his behaviors early on to understand what was going on. You know, there was his bigoted and racist rants against African Americans and members of the LGBTQ plus community during his teacher trainings. There was his really vulgar, nouveau riche, over the top Beverly Hills lifestyle. You know, they talk about his collection of Bentleys and Cadillacs. I'm not sure which one of the two was, but you know, really, really expensive sports cars, really, and or collector's items. There's also, unfortunately, his entitlement to the bodies of women, and in particular, white women. You know, and if you look at those three things in particular, it's very easy to understand almost automatically that this guy comes from a very, very low caste Hindu background, uneducated, not very erudite, no class, no class. Because I could tell you, as a Bengali, within more sophisticated, educated Bengali families and circles, that kind of behavior is really frowned upon. It just wouldn't be tolerated for very long. Not at all. But, you know, again, he got away with it because, again, we're talking about Western ignorance. And, you know, to put it into terms that maybe a Westerner might understand, Bikram Choudhury, you know, following him as your teacher or your guru is like the equivalent of following a toilet cleaner as your teacher or guru. I mean, that's how low class he is and where he comes from, right? So why were all of those things red flags? You know, his racist rants against African Americans, for example. Well, Indians unfortunately have a tendency to be shadist. What do I mean by shadism and shadist? It basically means that the darker you are, the uglier you're considered to be, or and the lower class you're perceived to be. And alternatively, the lighter you are in skin tone, you're considered higher class, higher status, and more beautiful. So shadism is not just a problem with Indians and within the Indian community. I know it does exist within the African American community, for example. You know, you only have to look at somebody like Michael Jackson and his self-hatred of his own skin color, his natural skin color. I'm not sure if it exists within African countries or within the Caribbean community, but definitely within the African American community, it's there. It is also there with Middle Eastern communities, with Turks, with Arabs, Persians. It exists. So I have a suspicion Bikram kind of fell into that, you know, and that would explain why he was so antagonistic towards African Americans in his teacher training sessions. Then there's his vulgar nouveau riche consumption habits and lifestyle. If you come from a poor or economically disadvantaged background and you suddenly come into a lot of money very quickly, very suddenly, there's unfortunately a tendency not to invest or spend it wisely because they don't really understand money and how to make money work for you. So there's a tendency to spend it on trivialities and things that just don't really matter in the long run. This isn't just a problem with Indians or Bengalis. This is a problem everywhere. You see this with lottery winners, for example. People who win $25 million and within 2 years they're suddenly in, you know, the poorhouse. You can see this even with American presidents. Look at Donald Trump, right? Now, his entitlement of the bodies of white women. I don't know why, and maybe this is something that social anthropologists need to study, but among ignorant Indian men and women, there is a perception or a belief that white women or, you know, women of European descent are sexually easier, more available, and looser. This goes back to this horrible, Madonna whore complex that, you have your virginal, pure wife who's completely yours. And, I think with the advent of things like pornography, especially online and on social media, there's this perception that white women or, women of European descent will do anything and everything sexually, and that therefore their bodies, it's open season on their bodies for sexual gratification and enjoyment. It's almost a status symbol in some corners, that if you can somehow get like a white woman, it's like a badge of honor, that you were able to get her. So, and I have a feeling Bikram was part of that. He believed that. And that would explain why he targeted some of his students the way he did and raped them and assaulted them the way he did. So, what are the solutions for genuine spiritual seekers in the future? To sort of discern fraudulent teachers and gurus from the legitimate ones, because there are some legitimate ones out there. They're getting fewer and fewer. You got to look for them, but they do exist. So, number one, I would say really have a good hard look at their teachings and their actions. Are they consistent? Are they, walking the talk? Are there inconsistencies? Are they saying one thing and doing something else? Like really, really have a really strong, hard look at that. Just as an example, like a couple of years ago, there was the case of John Friend of Anusara fame, right? He was also building his own yoga empire. And it was a very lucrative empire. He was making a lot of money. People were signing up in droves. He was a darling of the yoga set. But, with Anusara teachings, one of the things that he was kind of espousing was celibacy or really curtailing sexual activity, right? But yet, he was kind of having orgiastic sex in the back, behind closed doors with his female coven of followers. So once that got exposed and once the cat came out of the bag, his empire kind of folded. So that's what I mean. Look for consistencies. And if there are inconsistencies, that would be a major red flag right off the bat. Number two, are they throwing out racist or bigoted language and abusive language to their followers? If they are, get the hell out of there. Just run. Get the hell out of there ASAP as soon as possible. Don't even wait around to see what the fallout is. Nobody deserves abusive language or behavior thrown at them. I don't care how enlightened they seem, how with it they seem, how spiritual they seem, how rich or glamorous they seem. I don't care if they're levitating and they have the 7 colors of the chakras coming out of their ass. Get the hell out of there. Nobody deserves that kind of abusive behavior and language thrown at them. Nobody. Number 3, I would say also have a really good look at the female to male ratio. Are there an inordinate amount of female followers versus male followers? Is the guru or spiritual leader, kind of surrounding himself with a lot more women than men? Are there more women in places of leadership than men? What's going on here? I mean, really examine that ratio. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll end it there today, but if you found any of this information helpful or informative or something that you'd want to share with your friends, please like and share this video and subscribe to my channel. Like I said, I'm open to feedback. If you have any comments or any thoughts you'd like to share, please leave them below in the comment section on YouTube. And I'll end it there today.